All right, good evening, everybody, once more. And today we're going to be looking at Beyond the Resume, interview prep workshop for data professionals. We already have our speaker on the call. Some of you on the call, just say, all right, let me be sure that you're still on the call.
Hello.
Someone, are you on the call?
Hi.
Okay, all right then. I'll let Samuel do us the honors of giving us his introduction. I've known Samuel for more than a year now, and I feel like he's very, very knowledgeable in this part, and I'm sure he's going to teach us a lot. I can't wait to hear and also learn from what he has for us tonight. So please get your pens and your papers so that everybody can learn from what we're going to be sharing today. Remember to share this link with your friends as well so that they can join in. Samuel, over to you.
Hi everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning wherever you are. So my name is Samuel Ihagwam, and I'm super excited to be here today. Hi everyone, please give me a minute. Okay, so I think we're good, and can get started. So yep, my name is Samuel Ihagwam, and I'm not sure what title to give myself. I like to think of myself as someone who has a bit of experience in multiple data roles. I started off with, I think I'll just have my screen put on. Okay, please let me know once my screen is up. Okay, let's see.
We can see your screen now.
Okay, so yeah, my name is Samuel Ihagwam, right? And like I mentioned, today we're going to be talking about interviews. Personally, for me, I like to think of myself as someone who has experience or bit of experience in multiple aspects of data, right? Being that I started off with data science, right? And eventually majored in data analytics, right? Also, I've been looking into data engineering quite low key, right? I currently work and handle developments of products using data, also administrate databases and the likes, right? So there's like a whole lot of here and there that I have been able to put my hands into, right? Today's session is going to I'd appreciate if today's session kinds of gets quite interactive, right? We're going to be talking about job interviews, what job interviews entail, why you should prepare for job interviews. We'll look at it in various ways from the starter way or starter view, and then we'd also look at it from the experienced aspect. Now, some of us might actually want to transition into data from other industries also, right? You need to be sure that, oh, you're able to properly utilize the skills from your previous industries and get the job, the data roles that you're looking for, right? Of course, being that you've also strongly built the skills that you desire. Now, some of the things that we'll be looking at today would be the big question, right? There's always that one big question that eventually scares everyone. We'll look at it and how you can best answer it when you get to that aspect. We'll also understand what the interview process looks like, and then with a focus on data roles. Then we'll talk about the 3 Ps of interviews, right? And then we'll look at some tips that would help in boosting your interview skills. With all of that being said, once again, I am Samuel Hagwam, and let's proceed. So first off, let's start off with a job interview. What exactly is job interview, right? I don't think it would make sense for us to begin anything without first addressing what a job interview is, right? Now, a lot of times, people tend to go for job interviews without understanding whether or not this is a job interview. Of course, you know that, oh, I applied for a role, they've called me up to come for an interview or to schedule an interview with them, right? But you don't even know what exactly you're going to do. You just know, I need to get the job, and that's just it. So what exactly is a job interview? Let's look at it in the very basic perspective. Now, a job interview basically is a conversation between a job seeker and, of course, a potential employer, right? That helps to ascertain whether or not you as the job seeker or the candidate will be a good fit for that particular work. Not just for that particular role, but also for the organization in general, right? And the first thing that we need to look at here is that a job interview is a conversation, right? So a whole lot of times, plenty of us, or I'll just say everybody, right? One way or the other, everyone would have gotten all that very nervous. It's always like that, right? You all get very nervous when you go for interviews, and then all the stuff that you have practiced, you have rehearsed, and the likes, all the stuff that you have crammed, you eventually start jam talking. Let me put it that way, right? Now, it's important for us to understand that a job interview is supposed to be a conversation, right, between you and the potential employer. Now, potential, right, because you've not gotten it, you don't know if you even get it at the end of the day, right? But do understand that it is a discussion. So you want to handle interviews the same way you handle discussing with your friends, but then at a professional level, right? That way it helps you to be able to properly know, oh, these are things that I need not say. These are things that I dare not also even talk about. Now, like I said, it's a conversation, right? Keyword on conversation. Now, this is because the organization wants to know you. They don't absolutely know you already, right? Of course, you probably would have sent out your resume, but they want to know you in order to discuss further whether or assess further whether you will be a great fit for that particular role. Now, all throughout your interview, the major thing that you'll be talking about would be your qualifications. Now, by qualifications, what do I mean? I mean your education, your experience, and your character, right? There could be other qualifications that an organization may want to look at, right? But then these 3 are things that would actually matter a whole lot when it comes to job interviews. First off, your education. The organization wants to find out, what is your educational background like? How many universities have you gone to? What are the courses you've taken and the likes? Did you come out with a good degree or grade? Now, there are some interviews that would go as far as asking you what your grade is, right? For most interviews, it's not something that actually matters. So whether you have a good grade or not, what they are actually focused on is to be sure that, you've gone through that process of having the required educational status, right? So it's important. They want to find out, what is your educational status? What is your educational background? How are you going to be a great fit or be able to contribute to that particular organization based on your educational achievement, right? Now, they also want to find out what your experience is like. Are you just starting out? Do you have any experience from previous? It may not be experience that is related to data, right? So they want to find out all of this. How can you be able to contribute? Now, most organizations, they tend to want persons who have experiences, right? Which is where newbies, right? Forgive me if that's like a bad word to say, which is where persons who are just starting out tends to get frustrated. Of course, I was once in that stage, right? Always complaining. I don't understand. They are looking for 3 years experience, 5 years experience. But if you don't hire me with no experience, how am I supposed to be able to have all that experience, right? So a whole lot of times, organizations want that. Now, currently, there are ways for you to be able to build up all of those experience without even having to have an actual job, right? Which is something that you need to learn how to utilize, especially for someone who is just coming out of school, you're fresh graduate, and you need to get started in data, right? You need to learn the role. You basically do not have all that professional experience, so you need to be able to develop ways for you to best sell yourself using that. Now, also, character is one thing that interviewers want to find out from you when they get to discuss with you. Remember, like I said, interview is a conversation between you and the other person, right? They want to find out how you act based on certain scenarios. What are the gestures that you put out? Are you very nonchalant? For somebody like me, right, I can decide to fight an interviewer, right? So they want to find out, oh, if this person, when he comes into the organization, if he's going to be a tout or is going to jeopardize the organization's policies, or how best or how good is this person when it comes to our work culture or policies. They want to find out, if we're putting this person out to represent us, can this person deliver? Can we be able to trust them with our organizational brand? Those are the things that they are looking out for when you interview, right? Your education, they want to understand what your educational status is. They also want to understand what your job experience is, whether you have a job experience or not. They want to find out what experience you have and how it can be able to help contribute to their growth. And then, of course, your character as well. If you're going to be a good fit for that particular role, right? Now, I like to categorize job interviews into two, right? One is internal and external. For internal interview, it's one where you get to discuss with your hiring team, and maybe there's a new opening, and then you're in talks with them, so you can get up the ladder, right? Maybe transitioning from maybe customer service department into data analysis department and the likes, right? You have an internal interview. I believe in most cases, right, there's always that set of internal interviews and before job opportunities even go out, right? So internal interviews for persons who will be going for internal interviews, maybe there's an opening in your organization. Some of what we're going to be talking about today also would apply to you as well. However, for the most part, it's going to be focused on external interviews, right? Which is basically, there's a job posting on the internet or someone refers you and then you get called for that particular interview. Now let's dive right in and see what we get to do. Now, before anything further, first of all, when you get to an interview, the first thing you want to ask yourself, or maybe the first thing I tend to ask, right, is if the interview is ready for me. Because I know that I am big, I am beautiful, I am brave, I am all that. And I just tell myself that if they don't hire me, it is their own loss, right? Now, some of you are like me. However, there's always going to be someone in that particular candidate list that would most likely do better than you. So how do you ensure that you step up, right? Should the interview be ready for you, or you need to be ready for the interview? Now, this is where we then get to talk about preparing for interviews, right? In order for the interview to be ready for you, you need to get yourself properly prepared, right? If you do not prepare yourself, there's absolutely no way you go into the interview and not get kicked out again, right? Sometime last year when we put out vacancy roles for my team, right? We had a lot of persons interviewed, and some of them just maybe a bad word, but they actually flopped like really, really, really bad, right? I'll be giving case scenarios of some of these as we progress, but of course, it's important that we get to ensure that some of these things that we're going to be talking about today gets properly ticked. Now, why should you even prepare for job interviews? First off, you have a very, very good resume. Your resume would not get you the job. In most cases, I think we've seen a few cases where your resume gets you the job, right? I think it depends on the chunk load of experience that you have there in your resume. Other than that, I do not think there's a case where that happens, right? I don't think employers would want to hire you because your resume is really, really beautiful or any of those. Now, your resume gets you that slot opportunity to be able to get interviewed, but then you need to go with your full armor, right, for the interview. Now, why should you prepare for an interview? In no particular order, right? You want to be able to structure your responses. Very, very important. When you attend an interview, you want to ensure that you're able to structure your responses. Now, as a tip, right, one thing that I do most times when I have an interview, I just pick out maybe on my notepad on my phone, or I have a sheet of paper or any of my jotter, right? I just write out some of the things that I want to talk about in this order. If I'm being asked this particular question, and then I use that as well. Now, you don't basically have to like read out the whole thing. You don't have to follow it, but then you understand that, oh, there's a guide for you already, and you're being able to structure your responses. So in order for you to be able to, when being asked a particular question, in order for you to be able to give a better response, you want to ensure that you're prepared for that. Research your interview questions. There are a lot of interview questions that we have on the internet and the likes, right? You can research a good number of them, and then help you be able to structure the responses that you want to give. Also, when you're structuring your responses, you want to try as much as possible to not sound like a robot, right? Now, another reason why you want to prepare for your interviews or prepare before going to attend your interview sessions is because you want to increase your confidence. I can tell you for sure that everyone has actually been in that point where you get an interview session, and then you're all set. You're all set. In fact, like you know that, oh, I'm going to finish these people today. But the moment they greet you like, hi, good afternoon, blah, 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 you start panicking, right? That's nervousness sets in. And then before you know, you start losing a whole lot of your composure, right? But when you're properly prepared for the interview and expect some of those things. Now, if we throw this back to what I mentioned, an interview is supposed to be a discussion or a conversation, right? If we throw this back to that, then you'll be able to understand that, oh, regardless of whether the nervousness sets in or not, you should be able to quickly get rid of it, right? Gain your confidence back, and then get the interview going. Now, a whole lot of times, right, employers would throw questions that would bring back those nervousness, right? Yeah, but you want to be able to overpower that, and that can only happen if you've properly prepared for that particular interview. Now, another reason why you want to prepare for before going to interviews would be to indicate to that particular recruiter or the company that you have a strong interest in that role that you're going for, right? Now, how would you feel when you go for an interview and then they ask you, okay, why do you want to work with us? And then you're giving them my typical response, right? Because you people are hiring now, you people put vacancy out, right? That's going to be very, very dumb, right? But then you need to be able to properly let the organization know that you have a strong interest, you've done your due diligence, you've had a lot of research about the company and how it also fits into your goals. Now, it's important to also note that when you're showing your interest in the company, you also should find ways to align the company's goals with you. As you're aligning the company's goals with you, also align your goals with the company. Now, one thing interviewers would not appreciate is you being kind of self-centered and saying, oh, I'm applying for this job or I'm interviewing for this role because it's going to help me achieve my long-term goal of becoming a billionaire, or it's going to help me become the CEO of this company later on in 5 years' times and the likes, right? You want to be able to say, oh, I'm applying for this job because it aligns with my long-term goals of being able to solve problems, right? Now you're solving problems for the organization and you're also solving your own problems as well. Now, by your own problems, of course, all of us, we have financial problems, right? That's the major thing we want to solve, right? But then you need to also be able to let the organization know that you're solving problems which are way not related to finances, right? Now, the last reason why you want to prepare for an interview is because you want to eventually stand out from the crowd. I say it every time. When you go for an interview, it's never going to be only you. Even if it's a direct referral, right? Even if someone says, oh, I have this person that's coming on, it's not going to be only you. There's going to be like a long list of candidates waiting. The candidates might get reduced, but it can never be only you. There's always going to be someone else who would be there, like jogging to like take that job away from you. So you want to be sure that you are better prepared in order to differentiate yourself from them. Now, by standing out from the crowd, you're also, in order for you to stand out from the crowd, rather, you need to do all of the other things I've written here. Show that you have a strong interest in the role, not just in working with the organization because it's going to benefit you. You also need to show that you've killed your fear or reduced the nervousness that you might actually be getting. Also, you want to have your responses properly structured. Now, once you have most of all these things in place, you would be able to stand out from the crowd. Now, standing out from the crowd does not mean that you've already gotten the job, right? There's a whole lot that comes into play when interviewing. So let's find out some more about this. Now, the big question that everybody runs away from, or everyone gets to flop when they are being asked this: tell me about yourself. Now, this question is still kind of like the simplest, yet the most chaotic question that an interviewer will put out to you. It's chaotic because you don't know exactly what they want to hear from you, right? So you're struggling between what response should I put out? Should I tell them, oh, my family, I schooled in this, or I've not eaten since yesterday, or I ran out of gas and the likes, right? What exactly are they hoping to hear? Of course, since it's a job interview, we expect that it should be professional, but you still cannot ascertain what exactly they want to hear from you, right? So what do you do in this case? What do you do? Now, there are a few things to note why interviewers ask this particular question before we can then talk about what responses we can give for this. First off, remember, like I mentioned, an interview is supposed to be a conversation, right? So the first question any interviewer would ask you is, tell me about yourself. Let's get to know you. Why do they do this? Now, first off, they do understand that, oh, you probably will be tensed, right? And they want to find a way to ease you off those tensions before they get into the interview proper. Now, in this stage where you're going to have to talk about yourself, of course, you're talking about yourself, not someone else. So you want to take your time to talk about yourself. In this phase, I expect everyone to be relaxed. Whatever you want to say are things that you know and have done already, right? So you need to take your time, relax. If you do not burn out the nervousness in this stage, then I don't think throughout the interview you'd be able to find that peace of mind to continue with the interview, right? But once you're able to get a good grasp of whatever needs to be done here, then you should be good at the end of the day. Now, reviewers or interviewers rather, or recruiters would always ask you this because first off, they want to help you calm down and then get into the interview proper, like I've said. Now, another reason why they will do this is to also find out how you handle open-ended questions. How do you treat open-ended questions? A lot of us are usually not great when it comes to answering open-ended questions, right? Personally, for me, I don't know. So I play a lot, so I tend to just say I'm an anyhow person. So a lot of us, right, don't usually know how to handle open-ended questions. You're just telling me about yourself, and then you're saying, my name is Samuel. I school at this. I graduated last week. Before I graduated, so they want to understand how you are able to treat some of these, right? Now, of course, in when you're taking surveys, you get to just pick out options that you prefer, and some of us are like very, very good with that, right? But when it comes to the interviews, you don't have options of oh, black or white, A or B, and the likes, right? You have to be able to best communicate your story, tell it the way that it should be told, right? Now, when interviewers ask you, tell me about yourself, they want you to be able to express yourself properly. But once again, being concise about whatever you're telling them. You don't want to fall out of the line. You don't want to say things that will not, that are not relevant for that particular conversation, right? So they basically want to see how you handle open-ended questions. If in the process of handling open-ended questions, you get to say things that you're not supposed to say and the likes. Now, another reason why your recruiters or interviewers would ask you to tell them about yourself is to understand you. Now, a lot of us, we can lie very well. A lot of us lie. When I look at some people's CVs, I just shake my head like, how, right? So this is also one of the reasons why interviewers tend to put out these questions. They want to understand, is it you that is on the CV or someone else that you have on your resume? Right. Okay. So it's one thing for you to be able to have like a well-polished resume or CV, but then we also want to hear, if you say you're very eloquent in your CV, we want to hear you speak. If you say you're very brilliant, if you say you're very smart, you're very critical when it comes to thinking, you're analytical and all of those terms, right? We also want to see it in person, right? So this is basically one of the reasons why interviewers ask this question, and you want to be sure that you're hitting all of those spot on. Now, interviewers, they love honesty a lot. Honesty is very, very important, right? So if you have something that is on your CV, right, and then when they're talking to you, they are seeing a different or a completely different person, right? It's a very, very big failure from the start, right? So it's not something that you may want to engage in. So whatever you have on your CV, you want to be sure that you're also putting it proper to them. right? If you have all those plenty of experiences, you want to make a good list of them when you're telling them about yourself. I believe we're all good and following. Now let's hear from you. Let me hear in the chat how you get to respond to this question. Just a quick one. I'll look through the chat and see how we get to respond to this. Let me see. So how do you get to respond to the tell me about yourself question? Anyone? Let me see in the chat. Can anyone hear me?
So where were you? I guess some people are typing, so just give us 2 minutes for us to type that.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so we have Farid Zibiri. I say my name, what I studied, what I do, my strengths. Awesome. So we have Joan, my name, my soft skills that aligns with the role. Absolutely. Okay, let's see from other persons. Okay, so we have a good number of persons here. Let's see. Okay, so we have Juliet. I will talk about my qualifications, the experience, goals, and expectations from the job. Awesome. Say your name, your accomplishments, and why you applied for the role. My name is Tina, over 3 years of experience in this, worked as a BI analyst. Please, who is this Tina on the chat? If she's looking for a job, just give her immediately. Just give her this is a whole lot already. Okay, I was responsible for leading the development and implementation of. All right, awesome. My name, education, and what I've done related to the job. Okay, cool. Why I want the job. Awesome. I'm Emmanuel, graduated from name of school, course of study. Talk about your professional experiences. We have from Adekunle Precious, name, qualifications, goals, and why apply for the role. Udwa Lawrence, data analyst with X years experience, and my experience. Okay, so that's a good one. I see everyone is absolutely right on track. Now, one thing that we've been able to get proper right is to talk about our names, right? Of course, interviewers should not tell you your names. So when you're talking about yourself, tell me about yourself. How do you talk about yourself? First things first, you want to talk about who you are, right? What is your name? You talk about your name and a high-level overview of your professional background, right? Now, whether you are a current student or you are a recent graduate or you are transitioning into another role, right? You always need to make sure to include that professional background, right? Now, who are you? You want to say, my name is Samuel. I am a student of this, or maybe I'm currently a 300 level undergrad student of this, right? Where I have been able to handle this particular thing, and the other thing, right? Ensure that you put that professional background in it. Now, once you are able to talk about who you are, The next thing you want to tell them is what you do, right? Now, before you go on to talk about what you've done, you need to first talk about what you do. When you tell them what you do, right, it helps them to understand your capabilities at that point in time. Now, of course, it's okay to talk about your previous roles or experiences, but what they want to see at that point in time is the things that you're currently doing. Now, a whole lot of persons, especially when we're just starting out, right, we tend to miss out on this particular aspect, right? When you're just starting out, you'd be scared, oh, I do not have a current job, so what do I feel in? What do I tell them? Or I'm currently job hunting or job seeking, right? Absolutely no. Now, you need to talk about all the current projects that you're handling. When you're talking about the current projects that you're handling, find a business perspective and add to that particular project. Ensure that you're not just carrying out a project simply because, you want to build your portfolio and the likes. Ensure that you're making out knowledgeable meanings from that particular project that you're doing. Ensure that it is something that you can be able to use to sell yourself to interviewers, right? Now, imagine you're putting out a project and you're not giving your mind to that particular project. And then at the end of the day, maybe during the interview, they pick out that project which you have not really given much focus and then ask you, so I see that you've done this particular one. Tell us about it. And then you start stuttering, right? It would not be making any sense. But then you want to ensure that whatever current project you're handling at that point in time, you talk about it before you now start talking about all the ones that you've done previously. Now, if you notice, I've given it this format of who you are, what you do, and what you have done. Now, when you're done talking about what you have done, right, you could also talk about future goals if possible. Now, usually, when it comes to the tell me about yourself, right, this is the phase where I believe, oh, you need to sell yourself. Whatever strengths you have, you need to sell it. I say it all the time that if you do not perform well in this phase, there's a lot of tendency that you may not perform well throughout the rest of the interview. So however you package yourself in the tell me about yourself, right? Confidently, you have to be confident about whatever you're saying in this phase. However you talk about yourself, right, would most likely determine the rest of the interviews. Now, even if you end up performing better with the other questions, you may not still be happy with yourself because they ask you to talk about yourself and then you're sounding like you don't even know yourself, right? Now, you want to be sure that you're focusing on your personal life when talking about yourself. Focus on your personal life and use the present, past, future formula, right? So first off, talk about who you are. My name is this, my name is that. I currently do this, I currently do that. I'm a student of this and likes. And once you're done talking about yourself, then go into the projects or the current things that you're handling. Once you're done talking about the current things that you're handling, you talk about the things that you've handled previously. Now, for every interview that I've had, right, previously I used to be very nervous about this particular aspect. Tell me about yourself, and then you're stuttering or stammering and the likes. But then in order for me to get better, I would write out how to answer this particular question. If they ask me, I'm going to tell them, my name is this, I am the son of my father, and you cannot tell me who I am, right? And it has worked for me every single time. I'm not saying you should go and do the same thing. I'm not saying you should go and do it, right? Now you tell them, this is your name, this is who you are, you graduated from this school, if necessary, this is the current role that you're handling, these are the things that you're doing in that current role, and the likes, just like we've seen Tina put in the chat, right? Now, once you're done with that, you can then also talk about the previous things that you've done. Now, selling yourself is very, very important. I usually, so when I have conversations with my colleague who was previously my intern, right? I usually tell him, or maybe then when he was interning, I used to tell him, see, whatever you're doing right now, right? Whatever you're doing, ensure that you're writing it out. Oh, I implemented this one. I supported with this one. I contributed to this particular thing. Ensure that you're writing it out. I have a book or my phone tab also where I get to list out some of the contributions that I have made to my workplace because I don't want to forget about any of them. I write it out with the date. Oh, last month I did this, I contributed to a major milestone and the likes, right? Because I know that if I'm going to be hunting for a new job, I need all of these things to help me sell myself. And it has worked for me every single time, right? It works for me every single time. So you want to ensure that for persons who currently have job, right, you have experiences, any tiny thing that you do, oh, I built a dashboard report for the stakeholders or for external clients, which eventually help them do this. Like, go and write it down somewhere. When you need to go for your interviews, find a way, chip all of those things into your talks about for the tell me about yourself, right? Have them imputed there and you should be good. Now, if you do not have a current job or have that experience where you cannot be able to talk about things that you've done, you have projects that you've worked on. In the projects that you've worked on, talk about the things that you did in that project and how it relates to a business environment. Always translate your project into a business perspective. That is very, very important. For me, if I do something at work, I'll not tell anybody, but I'll go and write it down somewhere that last year in 2023, I helped the organization do this, achieve this with a reduced cost of this and the likes. So that when I'm going for interviews, I don't have to forget that, okay, I did this and the likes, right? You'd see the ones that you have on your CV, but then I would also talk about the ones that could not make it to my CV, because I need you to know that, okay, I am who I say I am, right? So basically, when you're being asked, tell me about yourself, my best bet is you sell yourself beyond reasonable doubt, right? Do not even let them have a tiny doubt about you. Oh, you don't know yourself, so let's just proceed with the rest part of the interview. Tell them and see how well it works for you. Once you're able to build your confidence in this particular phase, you'll be able to handle the most part of the other questions that will come from the interview. It works for me every single time, right? Hence why I'm talking about it so confidently. So once you're able to take charge of this particular question, I remember having an interview. It's quite funny. I remember having an interview and the HR was just saying, wow, wow, wow. Because I'll make sure that all the things that I have done, I will go and talk about it. Oh, I've trained this number of persons. Last year I handled this. Now, another thing, right, that I usually do is that I don't even let them get to the aspect of asking me, so mention one time where you needed to do this. Because if you get to talk about it in this phase, there would not be any opportunity for them to ask you questions like, okay, name any time where you handled data like this. There won't be it won't be necessary because you've already talked about it in your tell me about yourself. Now, when you're telling your interviewers about yourself, you also have to be concise, right? Say the things that actually matter, but of course, ensure that you sell yourself big time. Now, also, for caveats, right? When you're selling yourself, you don't want to sound over too prideful, right? You want to ensure that you're keeping it curtailed. So there's that thin line between, okay, I know this is this, I know this is this, and the likes, right? And then crossing it over to sounding as pompous. Oh, so you've implemented a whole lot of projects, and so what? Right. So you want to ensure that you're keeping that balance between them both. But best bet, once you're able to sell yourself properly in this particular phase, the rest part of the interview would come as easy for you. Now, I recently came across this particular stuff where This person is one of my bosses in the data field. And now, if you have a look at this, you'll be able to see that he has given a clear or concise brief of who he is. I'm a seasoned hands-on data scientist, a technical strategist, and solutions delivery leader with 8+ years combined experience. So he's basically talking about who he is in a professional manner. Now, what's next? Of course, for this particular one, I believe he should be talking about, I currently lead the data science practice at Periculum, where we build the analytics and machine learning infrastructure that does these particular things and the likes. I've previously worked across data analysis, quantitative research, all of these to be able to do these, the likes. I'm currently working on a project, which is this. Now, a whole lot of times, right, I also get to chip in my personal projects because I feel like it's a selling point for me, right? If I'm developing a project, I tend to also include it in my tell me about yourself. So once you're able to properly handle this particular aspect, right, you'd definitely be able to scale the rest part of the interview. Now let's talk about the interview process, right? What the interview process entails and how we can be able to handle that. First off, technical interviews. Currently, as long as you're applying for a data analyst role or a data scientist role or a data engineering role, you want to be sure that you're going to undertake a technical interview. What do these technical interviews do? They help be able to assess your problem-solving skills. Interviewers want to find out how you'd be able to solve this particular problem if you were given. A lot of times, right, it could be take-home assignment. They get to tell you, oh, this is it, and then go and work on it. Give us a feedback and the likes. They want to see how you're able to handle technical tasks, right? So you need to first understand the questions that they are asking before you're able to put out your answers. Now, the questions could be about your tools usage, could be about the projects that you've done, could be about maybe one of the things from the organization, right? You need to ensure that you take your time, process the question before you can be able to put out your answers. Now, a lot of times, right, you want to do your research, find out what are the potential questions that will most likely be asked about this. The best bet, right, I usually say it is understand the fundamentals of everything, right? Understand the fundamentals, and then you'll be able to get through a lot of interviews. For most interviews that I have attended, I don't know if maybe I'm applying for internship roles, but they barely get to ask me like very, very technical questions, or maybe because I get to talk about all the technical aspects when I sell myself. So usually most of the questions just revolve around like, okay, what are the basics that you know, and then what are like the business use cases of some of these things? How can you be able to help solve our business problems and the likes, right? So understanding whatever interview you're having, be it a technical interview, take your time, understand the questions, reflect properly on it, and then you can push it out, right? Also, you'll be having behavioral interviews, which are there to evaluate your soft skills, how you get to think, and your ability to handle challenging situations. Now, for this, I always advise use the STAR method, right? I'm sure everyone probably has heard about the STAR method, right? As a data person, your number one skill is supposed to be being able to communicate a particular idea, right, in a much more simple way. So you want to be able to properly address this. Give scenarios of your projects that you've worked on. For persons who have worked in organizations, you can share scenarios. Oh, what was the issue sometime around last year we experienced this particular downtime on our end, and then we noticed that, oh, it was due to this. I was in charge of this, so I championed the whole process. This was how I was able to handle it. This was what I did. This was what I did, and the likes, right? Basically, give that scenario to be able to show that, oh, you know your skill, you know your onions, and you can be able to apply those to the work environment as well. Now, also, you'll be asked certain questions about the domain that you're going for, right? Maybe, for example, you're seeking for a data role in finance, right? In most cases, they would require you to have a knowledge of finance, or show that you can be able to acquire that knowledge in the next few months or so. So you want to ensure that you're preparing strongly for these interviews before you get them. Now, when it comes to behavioral interviews, I always talk about it. In fact, whether it is behavioral or not, as long as they ask you a question, give a scenario. Interviewers love when you talk about examples. Just give example. So has there been any time where you worked with a data visualization tool and then you were unable to finish the work and the likes? Give an example. Last week, Seth, this thing happened to me. So I was working on this and blah, blah, blah. So this was how I was able to solve it. I was able to do this and deliver this particular project on time, right? So you're being able to properly communicate that using examples. When you're giving out examples, it shows that sense that, oh, this person knows what it is. This person has like a real experience with this and knows their audience definitely, right? Or can be able to better handle working with this. I believe we're all following. Let me see. Are we all following?
Yes, for you.
All right, awesome. So let's talk about the 3 P's of interviews, and then we'll talk about the tips to help you ace your interviews. Now, when it comes to the 3 P's of interviews, right? The first one we're going to talk about is preparation. How do you prepare for your interview? How do you know that you're well prepared for your interview? Now, there's no amount of gauge that we can be able to set to be able to say, oh, you're fully prepared for this particular interview. Every interview is different. Every organization has how they get to also interview, right? So how then do you know that you're properly prepared, right? Now, a lot of times I do advise that you, first things first, make your research about the company. Find out if there are any resources about them online for their previous employment processes and the likes. Understand what their processes are like. Some organizations usually have like technical interview questions that you can find on the internet. You can also utilize some of those to help you prepare for your interviews. But it's always key, research the organization, research the company, know what they are doing, know how it benefits you as well. Know how you can also be a good plus to that particular organization. Like I mentioned earlier, no organization wants a liability, right? If they're hiring you, it's because they believe that you're going to be a great addition to them one way or the other, right? If you're not making money for them, you're helping them reduce their business processes, or improve their business processes rather, and then reducing certain problems, right? So you want to ensure that you're looking into number of things, right? Look into the company, understand what the role is about, also understand how you can be able to structure your words when you're talking or giving your responses. Now, the next P that we're going to talk about is practice. Always, in fact, before you can be able to give a scenario of anything or question that you're being asked, right, you need to first practice, right? For some persons, it might come at the top of their head and then they just talk about it. But then practice is very, very important. Like everyone says, if you do not put in the work or put in the practice, there's absolutely no way you can become better at this, right? Now, one of the things that you want to do is to write out certain interview questions. For technical questions or technical interviews, you want to go online. If you're having like a technical interview for SQL or Power BI or Python, go online, get resources, practice those questions. There's tendency that some of the questions, maybe one or two, would come from one of the resources that you've worked with or that you've practiced on. So ensure that you're practicing. Don't just say, okay, I have an interview tomorrow. Instead of practice, let me pray and just go for the interview. Now, we all believe in miracles, right? But just practice. Just practice. I'm not saying you shouldn't pray, but just practice, right? So when you practice, you're solidifying whatever knowledge that you've been able to acquire. So practice before going for your interviews, and then it helps you be able to properly build your confidence to answering your interview questions. Now, the last part that we have is positivity. Positivity is very, very important, right? Be positive about the interview. Ensure that you're not doing a whole lot of things like maybe slouching, getting distracted, and many of that. Stay positive about the work. Stay positive about the questions that they are being asking you. For example, you do not want to badmouth your previous employers. Whatever you're going to be putting out, any question you're being asked, ensure that you're being positive about it. You might not get the job at the end of the day, right? But show that you have a keen interest. Be positive in your responses. When you're being asked a particular question and maybe you do not get the question right, don't start feeling bad. Show that, okay, you missed out on the question, or you're also ready to learn what the correct answer would be. Right now, that is one of the reasons why my colleague, who was previously my intern, right, got hired. Of the persons that we interviewed, right, we interviewed quite a number of persons. He was one of the very few persons who showed interest. Oh, you're asked a question, I don't know this, but I'd appreciate if you tell me so I can be able to look into it better. And that part, right, majorly got my manager during the interview, because this particular person showed that he was willing to learn, he was willing to look into it, even if he did not get the job, right? So always have that positive mindset when you're going for your interviews. Positivity does not mean, oh, I pray I will get it, I will get it, I will get it, right? It doesn't have to be all of that. It has to be in the way you put your answers, in the way you also get to compose or structure your responses. So let's talk about some tips to boost your interview skills before the interview, during the interview, and after the interview. Right. First off, before the interview, ensure that you're properly prepared. Research about the company, research about the job, research about the role in that company also, right? You might even go as far as finding out how persons in that particular positions have performed before. You might look them up on the internet, maybe on LinkedIn or Twitter, find out, oh, what do you think I can look out for this particular stuff. Understand that you know your basics. If you say you know something, let it be because you know it, right? Know the basics, always very, very important. Ensure that you also know how to Google, very, very important, right? So that you can be able to put out whatever questions that you want to put out, get the answers, and then properly get solid for the interview. Now, I have a small note here that says interviews are a two-way street. So also ensure that you prepare your questions for the interviewers, right? It's always not a good thing to not have a question. Even if it's just one, at least put out a question. It could be about culture fit. I think one thing that we do not want to do is putting out questions about salaries if it's not being mentioned by the interviewers, right? So you don't want to do something like that. So ensure that you have a question that you're going to ask them. Now, there is absolutely no way when you research the organization or during the interview, you won't have a question. For me, for some of the previous interviews that I've had, because I researched them, right, I'm able to find out one thing or the other that I can ask them about the job or about the company. It shows that, oh, you've done your research, you know about this. I remember one of the interviews I had about 2 years back or 3 years, right? It was for a data scientist role for, I think it's an estate or property company. Yeah. I did my research, right, and figured out that a lot of things were wrong on their website. Also, some of the data that they put on their website were absolutely incorrect. I talked about that, and I think 2 days later, the CEO scheduled a meeting with me to be able to point out some of those things. Unfortunately, I did not get the job, right? Because there was someone who was more better than me, right? So for that particular job, I had more theoretical knowledge, but then there was also someone else who had worked hands-on on projects that were related to that particular role, right? So definitely they got the job. I was only able to show the few projects I had done, give ideas about what I could. Of course, it was really nice, but you wouldn't compare it with someone who already has like hands-on in that particular field already, right? So you want to be sure that you do your research about the company or organization, get your questions, know what to ask. During the interviews, you can also develop questions and put them out as well. Now, before your interviews, most interviews these days, right, tend to be conducted online. So don't be like me. It's not like a minute to the interview, you now start clicking on the link and then you find out, oh, I need to update my Zoom app. Oh God, what's going on? A few times, right? I've actually had that. So I'm just talking from experience. So you want to be sure that when you get a link, try it out. Be sure that your applications are absolutely okay. You can try to be in the meeting room and just wait. Even if it's not the day of the interview, just try it out, or maybe hours before the interview. Don't wait for that particular time before you start working with it. Now, some of us are not familiar with some of these tools also. For example, maybe on Teams. So I think last week, so last week I had a friend who stayed at my place last week. So he was interviewing for the role he just left as head of audit. And some of the persons who came on the call were really funny because they were not familiar with the Teams platform, right? So it's either he was unable to share, to turn on his camera, or he was unable to use his mic. He just kept on going off, dropping message, oh, please, I'm so sorry, go off, and the likes, right? So it was really, really embarrassing. Now, imagine if you've been able to build so much confidence, and then at the end of the day, a tool that you're supposed to properly utilize now ends up maltreating you, right? It's just going to be so bad. So you want to ensure that whatever application that you're going to be interviewing with, if it's an online interview, ensure that you test it out properly before you do your thing, right? Now, it might be that you don't test it out. Maybe the link works fine. You get into there, and then at the end of the day, you notice that, oh, my microphone has developed a problem, and then you start shouting at your village people. It's not them, it's you, right? Now, the next thing you want to also do is ensure that you do a few practice, right? Talk to yourself, ask yourself questions and the likes. Also, ensure that you do some soul calming strategies, right? Just so you don't get into the interview with a lot of nerves or nervousness. Now, during the interview, some of the things that you want to do is to be concise and relevant. Ensure that when you're being asked questions, you're tailoring your responses to that particular question. Don't go away from the question. If they ask you about A, ensure that you're responding to A about A, right? Also, use the STAR method. Ensure that you're giving scenarios based on whatever questions that has been asked, right? Give examples of things that you've been able to do, the problems, how you've been able to solve the problems, and the likes, right? Show that you're genuinely interested in that particular role, not just the role, the company also. Like I've also mentioned, show how they align with your goals and how the company would benefit from you as well as you also benefit from the company. Lastly, ensure that you maintain your steeze during the interview. It's not easy, I understand. They will throw questions that will try to make you panic, but regardless, you have to ensure that you maintain your steeze, right? Don't let interviewers find out that you're very, very nervous about the questions you're putting out or the interview in general, right? Let them know that, okay, you're well confident for this and your composure is over the roof. Now, once you're done with your interviews, and then the next thing is, let's see. Okay, so what not to do during your interviews, right? So here are a few things that you want to avoid completely during your interviews, right? I've listed some of them. You don't want to be late for your interviews. It's always better when they meet you waiting on the call, right, than when they have to wait for you. You're the one seeking for the job, right? So don't be late to your interviews. Of course, always dress appropriately. You don't want to be caught off guard. Maybe your buttons are unclosed or for whatsoever reasons you're not properly dressed, right? You don't want to lie or exaggerate. This particular one can cause a lot of problems, right? If you say, I was part of the team that built Google, let it be because you were part of the team that built Google. Don't say things because you want to sound cool, right? Ensure that whatever you say, you're saying it because it is what it is, right? Do not lie. Interviewers love when people are very, very honest. If you don't know it, say, I don't know it, right? Also, avoid using your phone during interviews. You're not trying to browse at that point in time or check out whatsoever, right? Avoid distractions. Whatever is going to move your eyes away from your interviewers, avoid it by every means necessary. Don't read out your CVs. Don't read out your CVs, right? Of course, one thing that you want to do is to make your responses align with what you have in your CV, but do not outrightly read out your CV for them, right? They can see your CV, they are not blind. So don't read out your CV for them. Tell them things that they don't know about the CV, right? Things that they can't find, or give them better explanations of the things that they have on the CV. If you said I was responsible for the development of certain thing in your CV, then you talk broader about it, right, during the interview. Don't interrupt the interviewer also. When they are having their moment, let them do the talks. When they want you to also talk, they would make the request and then you can as well. Also ensure that you're not putting out very short or vague answers, right? If you, in fact, if you have the strength, elaborate as much as you can. It's whatever it is, right? To sell yourself, you want to ensure that you're doing all of those. Wrong body language, you do not want to do that. Badmouth your previous employers. Oh, some of us, right? Because you got offended or because they did not pay your money complete in your previous work, you're now gonna start telling the new interviewer that those people, they don't have money or they close down, like they have to run away for my life. So so you don't want to badmouth your employers, right? Because at the end of the day, they believe that whatever you have the tendency to say about your past employers, you also would be able to say similar thing to them, similar thing about them to the next employer, right? So ensure that regardless, you're talking nicely of your past employers, right? And then ensure that there's always a question for you to ask them, right? It could be about the company culture, but do not ask about salaries unless it is being stated, right? Now, is for them to get back in touch with you, right? Now, everybody, of course, every interview gets to tell you, okay, we'll keep in touch and the likes, right? So a whole lot of times you tend to feel, oh, what am I going to do? These people, they don't give me their usual number again, right? But as always, sometimes you already know that you will not get the job, so just maintain your steez and look for another job. Sometimes what you want to do is to understand why there has not been any update from the organization, right? For me, I usually do kind of like a follow-up. If I, for persons that reach out to me via LinkedIn, right, I get to go and talk to them. Hi, I'd like to know what is the status of this application or interview that we had, right? For me, a whole lot of times, I tend to be very, very friendly because I believe as much as you're interviewing me, you're also a human. I just go into your DM and I just like try to scream. I had a recruiter telling me because I went to her LinkedIn and she has not responded in some days. So I just wrote her name in capital letters with like lots of exclamation mark and sent it. And then she came back, why are you shouting my name? And was laughing. And then we had a talk about it. And then I got the updates that I needed from that. Right. So sometimes you want to do a follow-up with these organizations to find out what is going on, what is the status of your interview or your application with them. Sometimes they might not reach out because the role is no longer available. It may not be because they hired someone else, right? Because the role is not available, or maybe the company is trying to re-strategize on certain things and putting it on hold. Sometimes it could be because they have their hands all filled with some other things. So you just need to do your follow-up to understand what the problem is exactly. Right. For your interview, one thing a lot of us don't do is we don't reach out to say, oh, thank you for the interview. It was great. I look forward to working with you or having this particular thing, right? So try as much as possible. A short email should be good to help keep the conversations going even after the interview. Also, ensure that you get a few things that you've learned from the interview. There's always things to learn from interviews, right? Except you have that very strong experience where you're very, very confident in yourself, right? But there's always things to learn from there. During your interviews, I usually ask for feedback. Oh, how was the interview? I'd like to rate my performance on the interview, right? So you can do similar thing, right? Get feedback, know things or places where you need to work on yourself for the next interview. Sometimes you have to keep in touch with these guys, and then you may not get the job, right? But at least you've built a relationship, and then you can use that to improve on your next. So I think that's about that for me. Let me know if you have any questions before Tina shares item 7.
I pray. Thank you so much, Samuel. This was a very interesting session. I'm sure everybody learned a lot, and I'm just going to dive right into the questions. So if you have questions, you can leave them in the chat or just raise up your hand, and then I'll call you one after the other as I see you appear on my screen. So I think one person's hand is already up, so we're going to take questions. But meanwhile, please appreciate Samuel in the chat box. Tell Samuel thank you. He has done a great job. He has done justice to this topic. Okay, Adebayo, you can ask your question. Unmute your mic and ask your question.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm in transit, so you might just be having a background noise, so please just bear with me. So firstly, I want to say thank you for, Tina and Toby, for all you've been doing towards getting us geared up and preparing for our future in regards to our career. So thank you so much. And Sam, thank you. I think this is the best session I've ever had in terms of interview and all that. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. So firstly, this is my question. During interviews, firstly, I want to share my experience about honesty. You are very correct, but I need you to correct me in this aspect. Now, I know of a company, actually it's not in data, it's not data related. So I know they are requiring for a particular role, which I am overqualified, but because of the pay, I have some of their requirements too. So I applied for it. But getting to my CV, going through my CV, they knew that this guy has more than what we expected. So they went further to my profile to know more about me, and they had to fish out something to prove that, yes, truly, I have more qualification than what I expected. But now, the interviewer mentioned something and said, truly, I'm very good for the job. I'm okay for the job, but he won't get me the job because of dishonesty, that I'm not honest. Actually, it was a very big loss for me, and I just want you to guide me. Okay, if I want to demote myself, let me assume I want to bring myself down, at least to just have a foot in the industry. How best do you think I can carve myself, at least present myself much better? That's number one. Number two, during interview, it seems those who go in first get the bigger eat of it, and subsequent people who comes in, the interviewer seems to be now relaxed, or the pressure seems to be very reduced. How do you think me as a person, maybe being the last person to be interviewed after they've gone through series of interviews, how do I keep that tempo? Knowing fully well, looking at the interviewers, they are exhausted, they are tired. It's more or less like they've exhausted all they have already. So how do you think I can still go in with that mind frame I'm having while I was about attending the interview session? Thank you.
Okay, so that's amazing. I could see everyone was laughing. Yeah, so the first thing that came to my head was the case of first come, first serve, right? It's very important when you're going for your interviews. If I were you, right, what I would do is, if I experience that once or twice, I'll try as much as possible to get to interview venues much more faster or earlier than other persons, right? Increases your chances of being heard while they are still in their human phase. Let me put it like that. While they are still in their human phase, right? Compared to when you go and then, oh, maybe they already listen to other persons, they have their candidates already, and they just want to listen to other persons to say, oh, let us just hear what this person has to say, simply because they've attended the interview already. Now, one thing you can also do, right, would be to properly sell yourself when they ask you to tell them about yourself. I believe that regardless of however they might lose focus or be worn out, right, when you tell them the things that you've done, I always do it because this works for me, right? In the tell me about yourself, I just be sure that, oh, that's the first impression. So it's like saying someone is really, really tired, but then you give them like a drop off meal, right? They pick up immediately because it's enticing, it's what they will actually want to hear and like. So when they ask you to introduce yourself, tell them about yourself, don't let it seem like you're struggling to gain their attention or so. Be yourself, tell them about yourself, but do it in the best way possible. Right. So I hope that actually helps. Then also for your first question, which you mentioned, for me, I think what I wrote down would be how to best position yourself. Right. I'm not sure what industry it is, but of course, one thing I believe in is when you practice, you will definitely be better at whatever you do, right? When you practice, whether you have projects that you're working on or there are theoretical aspects, when you practice, you get better with whatsoever you're doing. That way, you can be able to say, oh, I did this. When they go and verify, absolutely, they find out how you did that. And then, yeah, should be able to land the role. I hope that answers your question.
I'm sure that answers this question. I saw Martha's hand up before, but our hand is no longer up. So if you have any other question, I think we're at time. We're supposed to be ending the session shortly, but if you have any other question, please leave that in the group, or you can just make a tweet about it. I'm sure I'll just retweet to my timeline and someone will be able to answer. I want to appreciate you, Samuel, for taking the time to explain in detail about your session. Even myself, I learned a lot. Now, why would they call you the GOAT? Okay, Joanne, we're going to take your question briefly before I give some updates, then we can end the session. Okay, I thought I saw Joanne's hand up. All right, then, if you have any question, please. Okay, Joanne, unmute your mic and ask your question. Please, briefly, and round up. Briefly, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Your voice is low. Can you increase your volume?
Is it better now?
If you're using a earpiece, you might want to disconnect the earpiece. So we can't hear you clearly. It's better now.
Is it better now? Can you hear me?
Very, very clear. Go ahead.
Okay, so I actually put the question on chat already, but let me just go ahead and read it out. Like I was asking about when you have an internship interview, what the flow going to be like was, and the invite is more like, okay, for them to get you to know about the internship, what projects they're going to do. And then secondly, what's your advice if someone is an intern that hopes to be retained in the company during the internship period? What will you advise the person to handle that period of time? So that's the question.
Okay, so I think I missed out on the second one, but yeah, for the first one, right, what's the flow of the internship interview when they say they want you to know about the role, right? I think that's scam. First off, that's scam. They say they want to meet you so that you get to know more about the role. That's scam. They want to know more about you. It's not you knowing more about the role, right? Remember, interview is a two-way street, right? It's you talking to them and they talking to you. So at the moment where you're knowing about the role, they also want to get to know about you. So don't go without like expectations or saying, okay, they just want to explain it for me. If that's what they wanted to do, they would have just written it out or put it in a PDF and then send to your email. Okay, this is the role, go through it, whatever questions you have. But it's because they want to hear from you. They want to know your skill set if you are going to be a good fit for that role. So it's not like they just want to know about you. You are not Buhari or Tinubu, right? So they basically want you to know about the role. They want to know about you and what you'll be able to deliver for them, right? So don't go without having expectations. Also, if you get maybe a casual invite or so, always ensure that you prepare. Practice, prepare, and be positive about it. That's just it. Regardless, then let's see the second question. What's your advice to an intern who hopes to be retained after the internship period? Okay, so I'm not sure what to say about this, right? But I think okay, so I'll give a scenario, right? When my intern was going to be done with his internship, right? It was supposed to be a 6 months internship with possibility of extension for another internship or a conversion to full-time staff, right? I told him that here are some few things that you may want to do. Ensure that you're not working in the shadow. Quite all right, you're working with me. I'm the only one that knows whether you're doing any work or not. But then I don't want it to be like that. Ensure that you're not in the shadow. Be visible. Make sure that other people are seeing your work. Let the manager be seeing it. We have a group chat for where we have the CTO there. Let him be saying that, oh, you're handling basic tasks that you can. If there's anything that you need to do, be visible about it. Sometimes I may want to have some things done. I tell him, go and do it because I need other persons to be able to see the things that you're doing and know that, okay, when it gets to this aspect and they need to retain you, then they can be able to say, oh, I think I've seen him handle a couple of tasks and the likes. So you want to show that, oh, you're working. Let people know that whatever you're doing, you're not just there for learning, you're also contributing in the tiniest way that you can. Right. Now, most people believe that, oh, as an intern, you're there to learn. But at the same time, you can be able to make an impact as an intern. Don't cut yourself short, right? Don't belittle yourself. As an intern, you have tendency just like every other person. There may be limitations in the things that you can be able to do. But yeah, ensure that you're visible about whatever things that you're doing, right? Don't work in the shadow, right? Also, I may not have like a full idea of the team that you work with, right? It may not be similar to where I work or so, right? But then try as much as possible to let it be known that, oh, you're absolutely doing things and then you have like interest in that particular organization. So I believe that answered your question. It's business.
Thank you, Samuel.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samuel, for helping to answer that question. I think you did justice to that. All right. For Data First Africa is still saying, and you know where to get the tickets. Also, if you've not filled the community form, please check Data First Africa social media page so you can fill the community form. We're going to be sending out mails by next week, so to allow people join the WhatsApp group. For our project of the month, for those that are currently in the Data Camp scholarship, our project of the month, we're going to be doing the presentation tomorrow. So if you have not completed your project, we're collating names up until the end of today. So we're going to be presenting our projects tomorrow for the data analyst track, data scientist, and data engineer track. So make sure that you complete your project on or before the end of today, because we won't be taking any more names by tomorrow. Thank you everyone for staying to the end. The recording for this session will be available by next week or anytime before the end of next week, and we'll also be having our next session by next month. I'll be sharing more information on that or more details on that. I think our next this thing is going to be something centered around building in public, so look out for that. I want everybody to say thank you to Samuel as we bring the session to a close. Thank you, Samuel, for sharing your evening with us. And it's good night from my end. Good night, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you very much. And enjoy the rest of your weekend, everyone. Tina,
thank you, Samuel.
Bye.
Item 7.
And come to Twitter. I'm sharing it there. I'm sharing item 7 on